Hi, I'm Dave Ulrich. We get to talk again about something that's very interesting. We've said, what makes an effective HR professional? And we've identified 6 sets of skills. One skill set is to be a credible activist, then to manage inside the organization, and then to be a strategic positioner. What we're going to focus on today is how do you be a strategic positioner? The basic theory of strategic positioning is we have to look outside the organization and bring the outside in. In other words, an HR professional has to say, I'm doing staffing and I want to be the employer of choice, but I want to be the employer of choice of employees our customers would choose. I'm doing training. I want to do training programs that will commit our employees to be more effective. But a strategic positioner says they're going to be more effective not in terms of the skills they learn, but how they will position our business to win. We believe that HR professionals going forward have to be able to position their business in the markets in which they serve. And the data from 20,000 people says that's a critical HR competence. Now, when we get under that outside in, we begin to find a couple of things. One is, it explains about 17% of how successful I am as an HR professional. It's equal to the other 6, except credible activists, which is 22%. The other is, it explains about 15% of how successful my business is. So business success will come from being a successful strategic positioner. When we get underneath that when we get underneath that strategic positioning, we find there's 3 things an HR professional needs to master. One is to interpret the global context. There's 2 parts of that. One is I have to understand the context in which I work. Social, technological, economic, political, demographic trends, and I need to know that setting. HR professionals should be aware of and attuned to that outside setting in which they work. And I should understand the stakeholders with whom I work. We found in our research that those HR professionals who are able to do that can position the HR work in the settings in which they live. There's a company in Europe called MOL. It's a mining manufacturing company. A few years ago, they recognized the context in which they worked would have fewer and fewer employees who were engineers because people weren't taking engineering in school. They began to invest heavily in high school, in universities, in Eastern Europe, in engineering degrees. Today, because they manage that context, there are more engineers who will go into their company. HR professionals need to connect to the global world in which we live. Second, they need to decode the customer expectations. HR professionals, particularly with customers, need to know who the customers are of our company and what they expect and how we serve them well. It's not enough to serve an employee. It is critical to serve an employee so that that employee will serve a customer. Boots, the store in the United Kingdom, has found a strong correlation between employee attitude and commitment and customer attitude. And they're dedicated to bringing the employee into their HR practices. When we do training, how would the employees respond? Could employees help design training? Could the employees help participate in training? Could they co-present the training? We need to decode customers. And what's fascinating about this is it affects us to be an effective HR professional, but it even has more impact on how well we impact business performance. We need to connect with outside customers. And third, we need to co-craft the strategic agenda in a company. HR professionals are architects. We co-create with the leaders in the company what the strategy is in the company. We bring that outside strategy into a set of HR practices. And when we co-craft that agenda, we get seen as effective. Again, what's really interesting about that, when we can co-craft the strategy, we're seen as effective HR people. It doesn't have as much impact, though, as connecting with customers in building business effectiveness. That's an interesting subtlety. So, I want to be a strategic positioner. I'm an HR professional. Do I interpret and understand the global business context in which I work, the setting and the stakeholders? Do I decode customer expectations into internal organizational actions? And do I co-create the strategy? All three are critical to being an effective HR professional and to having HR be effective in business results. Decoding the customer is the most critical for driving business results. Co-crafting the strategy is most critical for being seen as effective. This is one of the shifts in HR. We love seeing HR professionals not just talk about being a partner, but literally being one, because they can be strategic positioners. Thanks.